the morning of CIM. I ran the CIM, or California International Marathon, this year as sort of a last-minute decision to try to qualify for Boston. It was a pretty late decision that I committed to in around late September, and I decided to try to shoot my shot to attempt this for the 2023 year. And if you already saw my race video, you probably already know that I wasn't able to meet that goal, finishing at a time of 3:03:58. I think I definitely underestimated the CIM course a bit, but regardless, I'm really happy and proud of myself that I made this attempt for this year, and I'm really excited to try again next year in my attempt to run for the 2025 Boston Marathon. So Aaron and I arrived in Sacramento on Friday, 2 days before the race day, and we arrived pretty early in the morning, and we first got our coffee, and then we went over to the expo to pick up my bib. Expo was nice. It was really convenient, really smooth. Everything went quickly, and there was a lot of, I guess, stalls where we can just look around and check out their merch or products. Didn't buy anything, but it was great just to see what's currently on the market in terms of running, and I was glad to just browse around. After the expo, we went to grab lunch at a local nearby area. That was great. The food was great. The people in that restaurant was great as well. We booked a hotel at the Hilton Garden Inn in Folsom, and it was very convenient. It was right next to the shuttle buses where the buses would leave to the start line of the CIM. And so it was very convenient for me, so I could save time on the commute to the shuttle bus, and instead it was just a 2-minute walk. Checked in around 4 p.m. and after the check-in and we got settled, we went out for a short run along the trails right next to it. It was sort of a trail or bike road. Either way, it was very scenic, very relaxing, and I was glad to go out on that short run as a pre-shakeout run. The next day, we woke up and headed to the official CIM shakeout run hosted by BPN. This was great. This was probably the largest shakeout run I've ever been a part of.
The biggest shakeout run I've ever been a part of.
Also, actually my first shakeout run, or official group shakeout run that I've ever been a part of, and I thought this was honestly one of the highlights of my trip to Sacramento. Wasn't expecting much, thought I'd be sort of overwhelmed by the amount of people, but it wasn't like that. It was great vibes. A lot of the people had good energy. Was able to meet Eric Floberg and Kofuzi, two of my favorite inspirations in running. So they were really nice, and I was very happy to meet them. And then afterwards, we went to check out Kofuzi's shakeout run. We didn't run that time, but we were just observing, and I thought it had similar energy, and Kofuzi was great as well, just organizing and kind of meeting people. It was great just to watch them and interact, all the people running, and a great vibe as well. After Kofuzi's shakeout run, we went back and we settled down, showered up, and went to our carb loading dinner, which was, we decided on the Korean food. And I typically have Korean food. Normally it's some noodle soup, and so I went this route again. I had the seafood noodle soup and also some tteokbokki, and then also some marinated chicken. So a lot of food there, something that I usually eat before a marathon or a long run, so it was great to have that meal here as well. Having dinner, carving up for tomorrow. We have Korean, got noodle soup, tteokbokki, chicken bulgogi. Got Aaron too, she's delicious. Side dishes. We then headed back to the hotel pretty early. I think we got back around 6:30 or so, and we settled up. I prepared my gear, prepared my gels, and kind of settled in, mentally preparing myself for the following day, which was the marathon. Eventually, I went to bed around 8 p.m. and I think I got some solid sleep. It wasn't the best sleep, but better than normal. Since this was the day before the marathon, I wasn't expecting much of sleep anyway. It is 6:25 p.m. and I am preparing for tomorrow's race at CIM. I have the On Cloud singlet, bib number 3630, darn tough socks, some arm sleeves, 5 gels with 5 salt pills taped to it, 1 gel I'd be taking before the race, a knee brace, my hat, pants, gloves maybe, I don't know if I wear them. This is a throw jacket that I will be throwing away at the start line, and of course I'll be bringing the GoPro so that I can film everything. Shoes will be the Adios Pro 3s. This will probably be my last time wearing these before I retire them. They're pretty much at 200 something miles, so I think it's time. And hopefully this will help me BQ. If not, it's trash. Just kidding. But that's essentially my gear for tomorrow. The morning of race day, I ended up waking around 3:45 and I headed out around 4:55. For breakfast, I had some oatmeal and a banana. No spoon, so. I got to the pickup location around 5 a.m. and there wasn't much people yet, so that was great. I thought the logistics was really good. Even though I had no driving, or I didn't have to drive or anything like that, I thought everything went smoothly. I was one of the first people there, and so I left on the first bus, which left around 5 a.m. And from there, I thought it was around a 15-minute drive to the start line. And so I got to the start line and I went to the porta potties, which was so many porta potties. It's probably the most amount of porta potties I've seen in a running event or in my life. And so I went near the tail end of the porta potties, and the lines kind of dissipated from there, and literally there was no wait. And so I went and did what I did. So I got there pretty early, around 5:30, 5:45 or so, and so I had some time to kill while I was walking around. It wasn't too cold, in my opinion, so I didn't need to stay in the shuttle bus at all. I was just walking around, soaking the vibe, getting myself mostly prepared. At the start line, it is self-seated, so normally, at least from my experience marathons, they kind of place you in corrals, but for the CIM, it's self-seated, so whatever time you are aiming for, you go into that corral. So I went into the corral around, I want to say 30 minutes before start time. And so I went over, got into the corral and settled in and took off my throw jacket. It wasn't too cold, and so I thought I could throw it off early, and so I did. The race started about 10 minutes after 7 a.m. I know it supposedly starts at 7 a.m., but I believe there was some delays in the shuttles, and so it was pushed back 10 minutes. So in this part of the video, I'll kind of go over the race strategy that I had in mind and what went right, what went wrong. In this marathon strategy, I guess I had 3 goals in mind, a ABC kind of layouts. Goal A being a Boston qualifying time. So in my age group, I'll probably think around this 2:54 time. And then the goal B would be just a sub 3 time. And then the goal C is just to PR, which was my last PR was at the SF marathon, which is around a 3:11, 3:10. I forgot the exact number, but around there. So my strategy for this race was to negative split a lot of the experienced runners who had run this course before. highly suggested that you take the first half easy because it is a lot of rolling hills, and it is the harder part of the course, while the second half of the course was more gradual downhill. And so I took up on that strategy and kind of planned out what I would needed to run to achieve that A goal. So in the first half of the marathon, I planned for about a 1:27:30 around there. And then the second half, I would plan a negative split around 1:26:30, kind of adding up to 2:54. And so that would mean kind of the first half, I would run around a 6:40 something pace, and the second half I'd run at a 6:30 something pace. The race definitely was a lot hillier than I thought in the first half, so I think I underestimated that part, and I kind of was too attached to the pacing of the time or the strategy that I had written down, and not really taking into account of how I felt at the time. And so I think that ultimately paid a price for me at the second half of the marathon. I felt pretty comfortable in the first half going at the pace, but I think the rolling hills definitely took a toll on me in the second half, and it was hard to negative split, and eventually I didn't actually negative split. I definitely fell off my time, and so I wasn't able to accomplish that final goal, A goal from there. I think the first half I was pretty bang on or spot on my strategy, getting into the half around 1:27:50 or so, a little bit behind. So it was, I thought from there I was still pretty comfortable, and still in my mind I was ready to get this A goal. I thought, okay, this might be possible, but I think around mile 12 or so, I had the urge to go number 2, and that, came on and off, and every time it came on, the feeling was dangerously there, and the downhills definitely did not help me. Every time I hit the downhills, the feeling just got worse. And so I told myself, just get to the half marathon mark, get that half marathon strategy time mark down, and reevaluate.
Not 12, 6:48. I need to use the restroom. Poor buddy.
And so that's what I did, got to the half marathon mark, and it just was bad from there. Especially when there's loads and loads of people around, especially at the half marathon mark. You didn't want to let loose there, or I didn't want to let loose there. It would have been extremely embarrassing. And so I think around mile 13 or 14, after the half marathon mark, I found a porta potty and I just went. It is a decision that I don't regret doing because I felt better afterwards and the feeling was gone. But ultimately that put me behind quite a bit, both from a time perspective and also mentally.
Have to use the restroom.
And so I started the second half kind of mentally worried, I'd say, because that A goal is now in question. I was now kind of like 2 to 3 minutes behind my race strategy, given that I had to use the porta potty. And I was starting to reevaluate, I need to negative split even more, dipping into even the low 6:30s or high 6:20s, which I've never done in a marathon distance. I know I've trained my marathon paces at 6:30s once in a while, but 6:20s would almost be dipping to my 10K pace. So I had to reevaluate there, and you can kind of see in my pace that each mile I was kind of slowing down. Actually, you can tell that mentally I was kind of evaluating, trying to think, okay, is this A goal even possible anymore? And so I think at mile 18, given the paces I was going at, I decided, okay, A goal is now out of the picture. B goal is now the goal, which is just achieving that sub 3 hour time. And so I kind of maintained pace there. I was in the high 650s, hitting some 7-minute flat miles as well. And my thought was, okay, as long as the 3 hour pace group didn't pass me, I'd be fine. And at this point of the race, I had started to feel some of the fatigue that has kind of grown on me because of those first half. I probably underestimated that, and then my legs were starting to feel it there. And so I couldn't really push myself even further, and so I slowed down to that pace there.
Now 18, 6:56, slowing down, tired.
And mentally, I was kind of still struck by the fact that I can accomplish my A goal, but either way, I pushed on. After I think it was the J Street Bridge, after that short incline, my pace slowed down even more there because of that incline, and I was kind of worried because my pace was slowing down and the 3-hour group could catch up to me anytime. And that's what happened. I think it was around mile 23, they came up and they kind of overtook me there.
Mile 23, 7:06, 3 hours faster.
I tried to keep up with them, but I think at the time my legs were kind of giving in, and so I thought, okay, mentally I was already kind of down, and so keeping up with this 3-hour pace group, I was able to keep up with them for, I want to say, a half a mile or so, but at the end of the day, let them go. And at that point, I was mentally drained and physically drained, and I kind of thought, okay, A and B are out of the picture. And kind of that thought of stopping started to creep in multiple times, saying, okay, you didn't accomplish the A goal, you didn't accomplish the B goal, the C goal is now there, PR time, right? And I want to say, pretty far below my PR already, and so these thoughts were coming through my head and saying, okay, you can even walk if you wanted to. Walk, take a break, run after, and you'd probably still get your PR. And these thoughts kind of creeped in, and I didn't want that because I always want to run the entire way of a marathon. I don't ever want to stop. I love running so much, and I just want to cherish that. And I feel like if I walked, I'd be doing that an injustice. At least that's my philosophy in running. And so I made a conscious decision to not kind of go to the well in those last few miles, that last 5K. And I just slowed it down to a pace that I felt comfortable with, and knew that I'd PR anyway, and I just made sure I stayed healthy and not get myself injured, because that seagull I think was there already. And so I approached the final 400 meters, and I slowed down to a pace to almost like 8 something. It was a low 8, but either way, I was just soaking in all the vibes, and the last 400 meters was great. The last 200 meters were great. A lot of people there. My brother was there to film and get me across the finish line, and I'm happy that I finished.
Let's go, Alvin! All the way!
Along with Valerie, Megan, Michael, Rocio, Eric, Amanda, John, Tom, Alejandro, Gavin, Alvin, Giovanni, Sebastian Taylor, Raymond Tinkwillet.
Overall, I'd probably give myself, if I were to give myself a rating, I'd probably give myself a below expectations. My expectations were to at least go sub 3, but that didn't happen, which is fine. I still got my PR, but ultimately, I'm still happy that I finished the race, and I finished it without stopping, and it's something that I could use this opportunity to kind of fuel myself in my next opportunity of going sub 3 or getting that Boston qualifying time. So it was a great run. It was a fun run, a great trip. Sacramento was beautiful, a lot of fall foliage that I really enjoyed looking at, walking around the city, and also that finish line post-race. And so it was great. I loved this race. Definitely underestimated the first half. Took a lesson from that to really understand the course better and plan out my strategy better so that I'm not in that mental state, and also to plan my nutrition well. I think the porta potty situation was maybe due to whatever I ate in the morning. I had coffee and oatmeal and a banana. I don't typically have oatmeal. I usually have a bagel and peanut butter. I mean, oatmeal to me is always a safe choice, but I think that could have played a role in me using the restroom at the halfway mark. But either way, I think that probably wouldn't have impacted my time too much, but you never know. And so 2 things to learn here is to race better, plan my race strategy better, and nutrition. So those 2 are the big key things I'd probably take from this, and perhaps some strength training. I always say that, but I think strength training is something I need to do eventually. I never really have done it in training blocks, and so that's something that I should learn and do more of. If you made it this far, I really appreciate you watching and sticking through. Hopefully my experience in the CIM have given you some insight to whatever you're racing or whatever you're doing in life. I have no more races for this year of 2023, but I do have some exciting races next year that I plan to do, especially when I want to qualify for that Boston time. But stay tuned for all the running adventures next year. All right, see you guys next time.